Hello and welcome to 𝐾𝐞 TV. James Preston with you for another edition of Executive Corner Expert Talks. The global recorded music industry generated an incredible $23.1 billion in 2020 alone. Despite the backdrop of a global pandemic with lower earnings for the everyday worker, it still represented a 7% or $1.5 billion growth from 2019. Hit songs, of course, account for the bulk of that figure. So imagine if you or a budding A&R could avoid trawling the approximate 21 million releases each year to find that needle in a haystack. Enter Musiio. In addition to helping to identify the potential for hit songs, Musiio uses artificial intelligence to help automate workflows for those in the music industry. And to talk us through all the finer points, it's my great pleasure to introduce Musiio CEO Hazel Savage. Hazel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, James. Pleasure to be here.
Well, Hazel, great to have you. Let's start with something that's really captured my imagination. The ability for the AI Musiio has developed to help pick hit songs. How exactly does that process work?
Great question. There isn't a super short answer to that one, but essentially all of our technology is based on the idea that we can take a track, an MP3 or a WAV, we're turning it into something a computer can read. So at its core, it is computer visualization. So turning MP3s into something a computer can read, and then you just teach the computer what you would like it to look for. So a great way that it was described to me by somebody on my music team was, if you imagine when we all look at a waveform, when we look at a waveform, you can see where it fades in, where it fades out. You can see where there are, peaks and troughs. You can see areas of replication. But by looking at a waveform, you can't see what genre something is, whether it has a vocal. You can't tell if something's any good by looking at a waveform. But if you go up and over the top of that waveform and look down, all that information is actually stacked. And that's the information that we're looking for. And once you have that data and you can analyze it, you can generate great insights, such as hit potential.
Yeah, it sounds like the possibilities could actually be limitless with that kind of technology. Now, I read a very interesting piece from your blog, which was comparing Spotify's top 200 songs to new Spotify releases and then a bunch of random user-generated songs. Now, once you've had your AI run its checks through them, how exactly does it then differentiate between those different songs and go, okay, well, this one looks fantastic based on that top-down view, and what I suppose is the probability of the ones that fall into certain categories of actually getting above the threshold to potentially be hits? How does that all work?
Great question. So a lot like we would train an AI to do anything, we also train it to spot hit potential. And if you give a computer enough examples, it will tell you the similarity that it sees between those examples. Of course, what we're doing is just giving you the first number, the first piece of data. Say this track has a 70% hit potential score, 70 hit potential. That means it's got a pretty good shot. Anything above 67% has the potential to be a hit. Of course, there are then the other factors that come in. Who is the artist? What is the record label? What kind of marketing does the track have? But this just gives you an indication when you're trying to sort through very, very large forms of data. And say, for example, you were a record label and you had an album of tracks and you were trying to decide which should be the single, then this could also give you an indication, which of the tracks has the highest score, or perhaps which two are the highest, and do you want to lead with one, follow with the other? We just give you data to be able to do that with.
Look, there's so many countless examples I can think of. Even last year, we looked at Olivia Rodrigo's Driver's License, for example. I think a lot of people heard that song and were like, yeah, gradually, and then over a couple of weeks, it finally stuck with them. But would that be, for example, a song that you would run through your algorithm and immediately be identified as a hit, given it's a bit more of a sleeper kind of hit?
I would be fascinated. I haven't run that exact track through the system, but I feel like I should, so that I can give you an answer. But interestingly, I was sent a song by an artist recently, Tiggy Hawk, her new single. And electronic music is not normally my forte, but I heard it and I loved it. And so I gave it to my co-founder and he ran it through the AI, and it had a hit potential of 76, which means it has the potential to be a hit. And I was delighted because I was like, oh, vindicated. The track that I liked now has a great score. So you can use it in that decision-making process. You can use it to identify if you have a really large volume of audio. You know, I always thought it was a little bit crazy, and I'm absolutely loving looking at your background today, James, because when I used to work for Universal in Sydney, I could pretty much see the office at Millers Point, right behind you, right near the bridge. You know, but we didn't accept unsolicited demos back when I worked at Universal. And so the idea now that you can have that music submitted and you can analyze what you have all the artists have a much better shot at being discovered, and that is something I'm quite passionate about.
So let me just go into the insight then of potentially a record label like Universal. What is the process then? So you were saying that they can't be directly approached from, you know, Joe Bloggs down the street who's got a little garage band. Does it have to come through another label, or what is the process now, and how does, for example, Musiio help streamline that?
Oh, I mean, I feel like there's probably as many different ways as there are labels. You know, with Universal, funnily enough, when I worked there, and I am talking 10 years ago, people did still send us CDs into the mailroom. And, you know, maybe someone would just listen to one if they were bored that day, but that's not a system. You know, now you do also have feeder labels, so a smaller independent label that will filter their talent up towards the bigger labels. That's a traditional path. You also have trusted sources. So, you know, people who've signed other bands or who manage other bands who bring them to the label and say, hey, this is great. And even more interesting, you know, Sony Music's acquisition of Cobalt's company, AWOL, for $430 million this year is buying the biggest data pipeline transaction that I've seen so far. So it does show that these big labels are taking this discovery element seriously. I still hope to work with them all on figuring out, okay, it's great, now you have a ton of music. Let me use my data to show you where to put the focus.
So what's been some of the feedback that you've received from the likes of Universal, Sony, all those other big places? Because, I mean, when YouTube first came out, for example, a lot of people looked at that as one of the great levelers. All of a sudden, we could discover people we might not have seen before. The same deal with, you know, having a laptop essentially acting as an entire studio these days for a lot of producers. So it seems like it potentially becomes a great leveler when you're looking at music completely objectively. What kind of feedback have you had from labels?
Generally good feedback. Although it's a sensitive area is artificial intelligence in terms of rolling it out to any industry. There's always a little level of suspicion and a little level of distrust that we don't want the robots taking over, which I completely understand. But what I try and position it as is usually the labels come to us and they're very happy because maybe they've got a back catalogue of, you know, 40,000, 50,000 tracks, and they're not going to do anything with them otherwise. And so we solve a problem for them that nobody is willing to do manually because we can listen through that volume of music. Maybe it's for something they already own that should be re-released, something they already own that deserves a new viral push on TikTok. So if we can process data at a scale that humans aren't capable of doing, then that's appealing. But I'm also not advocating for, you know, removing humans from the equation. You know, it shouldn't be that everything that gets sent to a label we process, and then before anyone's even took a look, out goes a contract to sign that artist. You know, that's not what I'm advocating for. What it should be is, you know, say you are sent 10,000 tracks a week, let me shortlist that to 20 and send that to your A&R team. That's how it should work. But there's still, you know, it would cause a significant shift in the industry. So there's also some nervousness and a tentative approach around new technologies.
No, I very much agree with your concept of not allowing Skynet to take over the world with a bunch of cyborgs. That would be very much in the way that I would like to see the future unfold. And also, I did see on your website too, it's not just A&R now, you're looking at AI&R, which is, I think, a really good way of looking at it. It's just an assisted process. So let's talk a bit more about the kind of things that Musiio does. It's obviously not just finding a hit song. There are other useful features for AI in the music industry. So what exactly do you offer beyond finding those hit songs, and how can clients get the most personalized results?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our most popular products is just straightforward tagging. So the ability to run large amounts of data through our system and find out the genre, the mood, the BPM, the key, whether there's a vocal or not, without having to manually listen to each song and say whether it has these attributes. And we currently do that to the tune of about 2 million tracks a day, collectively with all of our customers worldwide. And, it wouldn't be possible to manually tag 2 million tracks a day, or maybe if you hired a couple of 100,000 people. But so it's work that isn't being done, and it improves access to music, it improves searchability. So we're very proud of our straightforward tagging. And for anyone who's interested, we do have a free demo on our website where you can just drop in a music link and retrieve all the tags for it. So that's at musiio.com if anyone wants to try it.
That's brilliant. I remember when I was growing up and I bought my first big Mac desktop and I was obsessed with iTunes on it, and I would have to go back through each and every individual song and I'll just out myself here, illegally downloaded from limewire or YouTube, and then, add the artist in and add the song title, the beats per minute, all that kind of genre stuff. And it's really time consuming. I mean, let alone 2 million. Yeah. It's crazy. So let's continue on now though. How do you extract and run thousands of features through your neural networks? How does that process work?
So when it comes to actually training the AI, you simply need several thousand examples of the thing that you're trying to train. So an interesting example I always use was a pilot we did with a streaming service in China that approached us and just said, can you differentiate between music that's sung in Mandarin and music that's sung in English? And so I said, yeah, if there's something audibly different about these two types of music, we just teach the AI to find the same thing. So we gave it 5,000 songs that were in Mandarin, 5,000 that were in English, and we told the AI, this is what that looks like. And then, you train it for 2 weeks on identifying those features and those extracted features. And then after 2 weeks, you show it something it's never seen before. And then with about 97% accuracy, it can tell you if that song is in Mandarin or in English. And then obviously do that at large scale. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's just an example of a language decision that's just one or the other. But technically it's the same for, say, all 83 genres that we're able to identify. The AI has been pre-trained on large data sets, showing it what those genres look like. And then when it comes across something else that shares characteristics, features, it's able to say, with a 70% certainty, that's a rock song, or with a 80% certainty, that's a pop song. And that's how we generate the tags.
I mean, it just sounds like such an advanced piece of equipment. How long did it take to develop it?
Good question. So we're a 3.5-year-old company. My co-founder, our CTO, deserves all the credit for the artificial intelligence part of the business. And really, we had a sort of a working prototype within 3 months. But I will say, when we first started working together, my co-founder did tell me that, that the timing was perfect, because 12 months earlier, the technology wasn't really there where you could do things in this kind of volume. And so we just hit the sweet spot in terms of timing. And then also my co-founder, who was able to build a prototype, just so we could prove that, the thing that we thought we would be able to do using AI was possible. And that took about 3 months.
Wow. It's all just incredibly streamlined, even though it's got so many moving parts. I'm amazed by that timeline itself. Now, let's move on a bit to some of the other brands you've worked as well. Brands such as Jamendo and Vans, so many others as well. Why do you think they're coming on board? What is the unique selling point of Musiio that sees these big companies come to you specifically?
Of course, I think it can be a few different things. I think we're still relatively unique in the space in terms of the accuracy of our AI, and also the fact that we do both tagging and search. There are some other companies out there that do one or the other, or do one or the other, but to a lesser degree of accuracy. So, we are sort of seen as the market leader in this space. But also when people come to us, my background, having worked in music for 15 years, it's very easy for me to understand the challenges that they might have as a customer. And I think that's what a lot of them are looking for. So, it can be a slightly different use case for each customer. Jamendo, for example, were manually tagging all of the tracks that came in, and they had a team, but it was very laborious, time consuming. They constantly had a backlog. We were just able to pre-populate all the tags for them. And now the team just have to go through and then, yes, agree, don't agree. So we've really streamlined that work process for them. With other clients, such as maybe Epidemic Sound, who also buy our tags, they have the ability to augment their search. So they'd only added a single genre to every track. And now they have up to 4 using Musiio's data, which means if they have an indie rock track, and somebody, just types and they have indie rock, now if someone types indie rock, that song will also show up. because we've added more data to the track, so it can augment search algorithms. And then also new clients like Hipgnosis that we just announced last week. They have bought a lot of music. They have created a never seen before catalog, and they want the ability to search it incredibly quickly so that they can maximize the revenue on their asset. And so we give them the ability to jump around and navigate the catalog really, really quickly. So each use case is slightly unique depending on what challenges the business has, but then we help them figure that out with our technology as well.
Yeah, it's just such an incredibly layered thing. Now, Hazel, it's been so great to chat to you so far. I wanted to touch on a bit of a personal note here. Music's very close to me. For example, I'm part of a mental health music charity called Listen Up Music. I'm on the board there. And, you know, even outside of that, it's something that certainly affects me day to day. It's always part of my life. The moment I wake up, there's some sort of music. That's pretty much the same thing for everybody else. The last 18 months has obviously been hell for the live music industry. So I wanted to get your take on the approach, I guess, from governments in regards to live music, and also as to whether what's been going on. I know this might be a bit of an odd question, but whether it's been advantageous or disadvantageous for Musiio given the restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, such a difficult topic. And one thing I have been aware of as we've been building the business, you know, we're 3.5 years old, but, you know, the pandemic's been going on for almost 2 years now, or 2 years, certainly in certain parts of the world. And, you know, I was obviously worried, like everyone at first, how's this going to affect our business? And we did see some changes that we had to adapt to, but fortunately, we are 100% a pure digital product. We are based in Singapore, but we sell our product globally. We have clients in Australia, in America, in South Africa, UK, you name it. So it was very easy for us to go, okay, well, if people are willing to do a video call, it's very easy for us to still work with everyone who wants to work with us. But live music has obviously not been as fortunate. And, you know, it's, you know, my biggest hobby is going to live music and seeing shows. And so the fact that, you know, there hasn't really been anything to go and see, I rather ambitiously bought tickets last November to see David Gray in Australia. Obviously that got cancelled. Yeah. But I'm buying tickets again now because I rather ambitiously hope that shows will pick up again. But it is hard to see, you know, the other half of the industry when it comes to music recorded and live, and the other side that is suffering to a greater extent. So I'm just really hopeful that shows start back up. You know, I'm certainly willing to put my money where my mouth is and go to everything. And yeah, it's been incredibly tough, and I just really hope that we get back to shows soon.
Oh, Hazel, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, David Gray, being able to watch him perform Sail Away, that would have been fantastic. I was supposed to go and see Dragon this weekend, for example, but that's also not going to happen. So, you know, I think there's a lot of people that are just really crying out for some live music. So hopefully we can turn a corner soon. And look, we won't get too much into the sport versus music debate. That's a whole nother question to move forward on. But in terms of moving forward for yourself over the next year, how do you see Musiio continuing to grow and develop?
Great question. So we're on a great path. You know, we're on a path of profitability. You know, we have a lot of customers all over the world. So I'll certainly be looking towards expansion. Hopefully this year or next year, probably next year, knowing the current situation. And I think for us, it's just about making sure that all the music companies out there, they know about us. And if they have a technology solution that they need solving and our tech could do that, then hopefully making that connection and working with them. And I certainly wouldn't say no to a music conference as well. If South by's on next year, I'll be keen for that one.
Okay, done. Lock it in for the calendar. Hopefully you can actually attend it though, of course. Now, just before I let you go, Hazel, I know you've mentioned it one more time. Let's focus on where we can find Musiio, the website, the socials. Where are you at?
Yeah, absolutely. So Musiio is spelled Musiio, and you can go to musiio.com. We're Musiio on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and look us up and contact us through the website if you have any questions.
Well, brilliant. Hazel, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a really interesting chat.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's Hazel Savage, CEO of Musiio. And if you missed any part of that interview, or you'd like to catch up, or you'd like to check out the rest of our extensive catalogue of expert talks, simply head across to our YouTube channel, 𝐾𝐿 Media. That's all for now. I'm James Preston, reminding you to stay apprised and invest wise with 𝐾𝐿.